Before you throw that leaking garden hose in the trash, watch this first. Water is spraying out, the pressure is dropping, and it looks like the hose is completely ruined. But today I'm going to show you a different use for this old rubber hose that most people have never thought of. If you believe a rubber hose is only good for carrying water, the final result may surprise you. Welcome back to Dan Fix. I'm Dan. First, cut the old hose into 3 equal pieces about 8 inches or 20 centimeters each. These pieces will become molds for the vertical support columns. Cover one end of each hose section with plastic film, then hold it tight with a rubber band. This keeps the wet mix from leaking out. A hose that cannot carry water still has one useful shape, a long round tube. But long thin cement castings can break easily, so prepare one small steel rod for each mold. Steel helps resist bending and cracking when the concrete tries to flex. Have you ever used an old hose as a mold before? Next, mix the material. For this small casting, I use a rich mortar-style mix with 3 parts cement and 1 part sand. Mix the dry cement and sand first, then add water slowly. The mix should hold shape but still pack into the hose. Wear gloves, safety glasses, and a dust mask. Cement dust can irritate your skin, eyes, and lungs. Fill each hose mold with the mix. Tap the hose and squeeze the sides lightly to release trapped air. Once it is full, push the steel rod into the center. Keep the steel away from the outside wall so the mix covers it on all sides. After about 24 hours, the small columns are set enough to remove from the mold. They are not fully cured yet, but they are firm enough for the next step. Cut the rubber hose carefully and peel it away. These 3 round columns will become the main vertical supports for the planter. Now build the main mold. I use an old paint bucket as the outside form and a scrap piece of PVC pipe to shape the inside. Place the PVC pipe in the center of the bucket, then pack damp sand around it with a trowel. Press the sand down firmly. Loose sand will collapse when the pipe comes out. Smooth the top surface, then lift the PVC pipe out slowly. This is the important moment. If the sand holds its shape, it leaves a clean center cavity. If it breaks, pack the sand again and repeat. Pour the mortar slowly into the open space at the bottom of the bucket. Move carefully so the wet mix does not break the packed sand wall. Once the mix covers the lower edge of the sand shape, place the hexagon-shaped steel reinforcement into the base. This steel helps spread the load and reduces cracking. A planter carries soil, water, and the weight of the plant, so the base needs more than a thin layer of cement. Press a small piece of foam into the middle of the sand area. This foam marks the drain hole. When the mix sets that spot, lets extra water escape. Without drainage, plant roots can sit in water and rot. Add another layer of mix over the steel about 1 to 2 inches thick, or roughly 3 to 5 centimeters. Then place the 3 round concrete columns into the center. I press them down gently so their lower ends sink into the wet base. Arrange the columns like a 3-legged stand. 3 points make the planter stable because the load spreads evenly. Keep the columns spaced the same distance apart so the planter will not lean. Fill more sand around the columns until they are almost covered, but leave about ½ inch or 1 centimeter exposed at the top. That exposed part lets the final layer lock onto the columns. If we cover everything with sand, the last layer cannot bond well. Spread the final layer on top and smooth it with a steel trowel. I take my time here because a smooth surface now means less finishing later. After it hardens, use very hot water carefully to help the plastic bucket expand slightly. Keep your hands away from the steam. The heat helps loosen the bucket from the concrete. Lift the bucket away. Look at that surface. It came out smoother than I expected. The old bucket shaped the outside and the packed sand shaped the inside. Scoop out the leftover sand. Push out the foam plug or scrape it clean so the drain hole stays open. If this planter will sit indoors, use a tray underneath. Next comes the finishing stage. Apply primer first. Primer helps paint stick to concrete and makes the final color more even. After it dries, paint the main body with the color you like. I paint the 3 support columns with a different color so they stand out. That contrast makes the planter look more designed, not just homemade. You can keep it simple, add patterns, or make your own style. For outdoor use, choose paint made for concrete and weather exposure. After the paint is dry to the touch and the smell has faded, add potting mix and place your plant inside. Press the soil gently around the roots. This planter can sit in a living room, on a balcony, or on a covered patio. Tell me what country you're watching from. I'd love to learn how people in your part of the world reuse old garden hoses or make planters. Look at what we started with: a leaking hose, an old paint bucket scrap, PVC sand cement, and a few pieces of steel. Instead of throwing everything away, we turned it into something useful and decorative. That is why I like projects like this. The value is not always in the material. Sometimes the value comes from looking at waste in a different way. If you found this useful, hit like, subscribe to Dan Fix, and tell me what old garden item we should turn into something useful next.